Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world leading global brands. Today, we have a super interesting guest, super excited about this one. We're joined by Guillermo Miranda, Vice President and Chief Learning Officer at Boeing. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much, Chris. Very well. Ready for summer, right?
I think we all are. We want to be outside, right? That's the main thing as well. Yes. Firstly, congratulations on the new role.
Thank you.
As well.
Super. 3 months here, learning a lot about the aerospace industry and
bet.
The fantastic things happening.
And for the people that are watching, we can already see the Apache behind you, right, on the shelf, which is super cool. I need to get one. I didn't even know you had a Boeing website where I could buy one of those. Not a real one, obviously. But I haven't making that much money yet. But yeah, that's. And
you will need a lot of clearance to get one.
Yeah, I'm sure not anyone can just buy an Apache helicopter as well. So, and you said that was your welcoming gift, right?
Yes.
That's super cool.
It came with the coming into the company. And it came to a show of how you need to learn new skills every day.
Amazing. And just for the people that aren't aware of Boeing, give us a quick intro into the organization.
Yes, Boeing is a leader in the aerospace industry. We have the commercial planes business, the 7 Dreamliner, the 787, 777, 737. We have a defense business, the fighters, the F-15, the Hornet, F-18, the choppers, Chinook, Apache, the new Defiant, and we have a very solid business on services. We service all the fleets of aerospace in the world, and we have a space business. The Starliner is the capsule is done by Boeing. Actually, it's gonna leave Cape Canaveral by the end of July, most likely to join the International Space Station.
What was it about the organization that attracted, apart from everything you just said, what was it that attracted you to this role in this organization?
The opportunity to drive innovation in a space that touch us every day. We need transportation. We need to explore space. We need to have clarity about engineering excellence. So it's an iconic brand, but it's also full of 140,000 great Boeing teammates that think on innovation every day, that are breaking the barriers of what is possible and are creating the future experience. We have a joint venture in Silicon Valley that just got the first license to fly aerotaxis in the US.
Wow.
Electric power. So it's the future of sustainability aerospace.
I know when my daughter grows up, she's going to be flying around in a Boeing taxi, and that's just going to freak me out. I'm going to be like, whoa.
Yes. Well, I have a daughter, so I can imagine the first date, somebody coming in a Boeing taxi to take her on a date. So that would be scary.
Could you imagine our daughter's going to prom? Their prom in a Boeing taxi, or see you later.
Yes.
Wow.
Drive safe. Fly safe. Now,
and the thing is, they won't even be driving, right? They'll just get in and it'll just be all automated and it just take you there.
Most likely, yes.
And it'll probably be like a subscription. You know, we won't own vehicles.
Flying as a service.
Yeah, flying as a service, 100%. Let's take it back a second. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now.
Yeah, look, let me start with a confession. I am a recovery lawyer. So I started my career as a commercial lawyer. And you can notice from my accent, I am not from Boston, neither London. I was born and grew up in Lima, in Peru. And I graduated as a lawyer. And then I started a little bit more of a corporate career. I work as a lawyer, but I realized that was not necessarily my long-term vocation. So that was my first upskilling to look for something else. Then I worked for the tax administration in Peru. I was the head of HR of the tax administration. Then I joined IBM in Peru. I have a great career with IBM. I've been in North America, Europe, Africa. We live in Vienna. We live in Nairobi. I work in Dubai. And I left temporarily. I came to Washington and I was the head of HR of the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank arm for Latin America. And then I came back to IBM. I did a little bit more of a corporate career. I was the chief learning officer. I was the head of the digital business group, the head of HR. And then recently this year, I joined Boeing as the chief learning officer and vice president for leadership development.
When was that moment when you realized I don't want to be a lawyer? And was there a particular aha moment where you like something that happened, or where you're like, this isn't for me? Just
yes, that was a moment when you are negotiating settlements because there are disputes. And I said, I don't want to be outside when already this became a problem. I want to be inside of the organization, avoiding that problem and driving better management. Many of the problems that at the end you have to find in the commercial space as a lawyer is because there were not good managers that couldn't make good deals or have a good leadership culture. So I said, let's tackle the problem from the start and not be down the river recovering the problems.
Yeah, I get it. Rather than let's be, you're almost just treating the symptoms, not the problem, exactly. in your role, and which is also, I'm sure, although it's your job, it must be very frustrating. Yeah, to see that when you like, we could have not been here. We could have dealt with this much sooner. So you've just joined the company. So obviously, I know you're just settling in. What is the main focused priority for you over the next 6 to 12 months?
Basically, to really have the whole learning and development organization embracing user centricity, the learner as the center of what we do, and how we help our teammates to develop their opportunities. There is always a tension between what you want as an individual and what the company requires of you, and how we balance nicely and gracefully that tension to allow all the business execution that is needed. And we are in a marketplace that is evolving, is fast, is changing, but also that is stressful for employees, stressful for anybody that wants to do a career. So how we can manage to get this lifelong learning mentality in, I need to keep reinventing myself. I need to learn, and learning is not just an event that happens in a physical location. Learning happens every day. And that's probably the first focus. And then use technology to make this experience really magical. Use technology to have access to what we need, what you say in the flow of work. Learning in the flow of work is a very nice and poetic declaration, but to make it real, you have to have the right connections to create the experiences for the employees, and also to be in the moment that the learning or the skills, the specific skills of competence are needed. And if you have the right setup, and more importantly, you have the right mindset, the engine of innovation for a company like Boeing can be that attitude of reskilling. Engineering excellence is based on exploring the next frontier. And exploring the next frontier comes with the right skills.
Yeah. And maybe even more so important in an organization like Boeing to build that culture of curiosity, right? Because you are literally reaching for the stars in every sense of the word. Literally. I'm sure you've seen the World Economic Forum kind of research, which speaks about how we need to reskill. I think it's more than 1 billion people by 2030. I think was the number, and I think they said over the next 2 years that 42% of the core skills required are going to change as well. So how you? I know you've only been there a few months, but how are you sort of developing those skills for the future at Boeing?
Well, look, I think that you need to start with some personal traits to cultivate and nurture in our employees. And by the way, it's not just Boeing, it's the industry. We operate in an ecosystem. We need to be sure that the supplier, our partners, our clients, we have the Boeing Global Leadership Institute that actually work with ecosystem. So what we are trying to say is, look, in order to have the right skills for the future economy, you need to start with yourself. And it starts with what you mentioned a few minutes ago, curiosity. How we create the right curiosity. How we have this mindset of open collaboration, the way that we work. And how we keep reinventing ourselves, having an attitude of lifelong learning. So these traits are at the core of how we create the future. Our CEO, Dave Calhoun, said, look, the people will not just remember the great turnaround that we did for the Boeing company at this moment, but how we did it. It's not just about the financials that I'm sure are going to be fantastic, but it's about how we did it. And this how we did it is based on these personal traits. And the pandemic has clearly teach us that first, we are much more fragile as a society than we can imagine before.
Yep.
And second, has put us all in an accelerated pilot to learn new things. Probably this conversation in a regular environment before COVID will be in your studio, and we were face to face. Now we are doing this over a video conference, and it works fantastically. Even we can share our offices, all the wonderful things that you have in your stand. But I think that kind of attitude is very important on how we envision the future and how we rediscover this hybrid workplace that is in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Were you prepared for these to move virtually from a learning perspective?
We were partially prepared. You are never prepared to something that is so sudden and so immediate. But human beings, we tend to be resilient. So you need to reinvent immediately. And what we saw in not just our industry, but we saw across the globe is this resiliency of finding new ways to get things done. And I think that's the important thing that we need to value is, okay, we cannot do the meeting face-to-face, let's reinvent this. We cannot do the collaboration of a design thinking mural that is fantastic. We can do it with a synchronous way. So I think it's this resiliency to reinvent the most important factor. And yes, I think that it's also important to recognize that if we have a situation like the current pandemic 10, 15 years ago, the technology base will be completely different. So the level of economic impact will be much more devastating probably 10, 15 years ago than what is already that is bad. I cannot say it in a different way, but we have ways to reinvent, and technology has really be part of the magic of how we reinvent our hybrid workplace for the future.
Yeah, you're right. Can you imagine this like 5-10 years ago when we didn't have things like Teams or Zoom or all of these incredible tools that we probably took for granted,
or
let's be honest.
Or Trello or
yeah,
Slack.
It's exactly as well. I think it's also brought us even closer to the customer experience that we get outside of the office now. We were getting this already in our personal lives, but the businesses were lagging so far behind. I feel like this has really accelerated that. Do you think so?
Absolutely. It accelerated, and it also gave us an opportunity to be humans again. In order to work, the reality is that we were inviting our teammates to our homes every day. You open your video, say, oh yeah, this is the portrait of that they just did in the high school. This is, because you are in your living room, you are in your home office. So we were inviting the whole team to our homes every day to continue to work. If you have the opportunity to work remotely, there is another group of people that reinvented themselves to go to the manufacturing shop floors. We have real heroes to keep things flowing, and of course, all the sector of healthcare that was at the forefront of how we reacted to the pandemic.
Yeah. With so many different product lines in your organization and such a vast set of skill sets, how are you sort of driving and upskilling across all of the different talent pools that you have?
Well, I think that there are some basic things that independently on which area you are, what kind of profession you are, or what kind of set of skills you are bringing to the workplace, there are some basic things that you need to embrace. And those basic things start with some key skills related with user centricity. I think that technology and consumer platforms have really turned around the marketplace. And if you don't have a protocol or a service that has been conceived with this user centricity at the core of what you do, you are going to be trying to sell like in the 90s. And that will not work, it will not resonate, because technology has changed the way that consumers perceive value. And I think that's an important core foundational skill, user centricity. The other thing is how we work. The way that we work also has evolved. It's much more of a multimodal team, multi-skill. We cross-collaborate. The headline is called Agile, but Agile really behind is I trust you and I collaborate with you. And one day I can be somebody that is driving a new coding stream. The other day I need to deal with the design. The other day I need to do testing. The other day I need to do marketing. The other day I need to deal with the lawyers.
It feels like me here. It feels like being an entrepreneur.
I am describing yourself, but we all have to be entrepreneurs in our own work. And I have to deal with finance to find the right combination of budget to have the initiatives that we need. I need to deal with marketing and the external clients in order to bring the innovation into our ecosystem, because we can refresh off the skills of our Boeing teammates, but if the whole ecosystem where we are doing business is not in that same level, it's going to be difficult to work together. So that way to work. Then I think that you need to have at least the basis of understanding of digital platforms. What is APIs? What is microservices? Why we need Kubernetes? So those things is a language that you need to understand and be converse, and at least conversational, and have the consequences of what it means. Because if not, you are going to be left behind of the conversations. You are not going to be able to conceive how we will execute this initiative. And finally, the other thing is the whole understanding of engagement and the cultural factor to drive innovation transformation. I think that this piece is important. It's the humanity in each of us and how we drive that engagement, and we understand what are the cultural drivers of a team, of an individual. So I think these are foundational skills: user centricity, agility, the way that we work, trust, understanding digital platforms and the basis of APIs and connectivity, and then the side of culture, community, humanity.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And as you mentioned, completely transferable across any industry, any sector, any function as well. Do you think that most modern learning and L&D departments are thinking this way based on your conversations?
I think that we are transforming our profession. The marketplace has thrown learning and development at the center of how companies are being reinvented. So either you want or not, you need to be on those conversations because they are bringing you into those conversations. Yeah. And you can react two ways. You can react the traditional way and say, I'm going to do these programs of training. Or you can say, we will create these experiences for upskilling. And it's language, but language reflects your attitude to tackle a challenge or an opportunity. When you say, we are going to design these experiences and these upskilling journeys, you are implying that you will start with the learning. You are implying that you are going to be sure that learning happens every day and it's not an event that takes you out of the world. You need events, you need labs of hands-on experiences, but that's not the core. Okay? And then you need to understand what are the drivers of, what are the science components behind the human beings learning something new, and how you practice, how repetition is important, how spacing in the experience is important, how engagement at the core of the practicing is important, how coaching, how community works. So you mix that and you have a fantastic cocktail. The other way, you just do your old wine and enjoy and try to say that this is good. But if you come with the right cocktail, people will embrace it. And instead of saying, oh no, I still go to my cava and bring these wines from 20 years ago and hope that it works.
And unfortunately, we see that far too often as well. Can you motivate people to learn?
I think that it's a combination of factors. First, learning should not be a push. It should be a pull from the employees, from your teammates. It has to be something that, oh, I'm going to get something out of this personally, professionally, etc. Second, it has to be easy to access. It cannot be complicated. And it has to be a delightful experience in terms of, oh, I like it. I will keep exploring. And that motivation is something that you create if you take a little of a page from digital marketing. In learning and development and in HR, we need to learn from our colleagues. My whole foray into learning started when at IBM I have the opportunity to be the head of HR for the digital business group. And I got all the basics of digital marketing and how you make things happen in a magical digital platform. So you need to embrace that and use the tactics of different functions. And yes, you can motivate people. Now, once you motivated the people, then you have to differentiate the different players that you have in your team. There is people that is more inclined to always try something new, to always go ahead. There is people that more inclined is to mastery, to get things done in a good, predictable, repeatable way. So that's the role of the leader. How could you configure your squad to have the right people in the right places? You will frustrate somebody that is more about the mastery and the predictable repetition to say, okay, now you need to create new products every 3 months. Oh, how do I do that? No. So there is a skill of leadership on how you position your people for success. And that's the role of the leader.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for clearing that up. One of the things we've seen throughout the pandemic is companies that are providing a great learner experience are also seeing increased employee engagement. And I'm sure you're not surprised by that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and also how you're doing this at Boeing.
Look, I think that the employee experience is a package that comes as a whole. You cannot say, okay, I will have a fantastic set of benefits and compensation and a horrible technology interface and day-to-day work, because then the excitement about the new paycheck will be gone in a week. So you have to combine the whole experience. And a key component in this marketplace about the experience is the opportunity to grow professionally, the opportunity to have a career, and not just in a given company, which is good. And there are companies like Boeing that we offer a life of opportunities, but also in terms of how you create your eminence in a field. And that is part of the engagement. That creates this additional drive to do things that has no value and you cannot quantify in terms of dollars or salary or euros. It's about the additional drive and inner motivation of your employees to do more. And skilling with the right set of opportunities is at the core of that. It's at the core of opportunity. So if you put an equal sign between learning skills and opportunity, that's the right equation. Because the employees will see this more as, okay, I can get a new job, I can get a promotion, I can jump into the marketplace, I get a fantastic job in another company as well because I have this experience.
And that's something I know that IBM did very well from speaking to your peers, right? They built an incredible ecosystem.
Yes, absolutely. I have a fantastic ride in IBM and very, very good insights, and also working with IBM clients as well, because we did some of this externally. And you cannot think for the learning and development organizations to operate in an isolated way, because for the users, the learners of the employees, this is not an isolated experience. This is part of my life cycle as an employee. So it comes with the other pieces, and it comes not just internally on the company, it comes externally in the marketplace. So you need to think ecosystem. You need to think in combining the right ingredients to get the outcome that you need and the outcome that is expected by your employees.
It's interesting because even in a small company like mine, there's so many skills that exist in the business that aren't on the CV, right? Or 5-10 years later, that's out of date. And there's so many companies that are talking about skills for the future that these skills already exist in organizations. They just don't know. They just don't have the data to be able to do that.
Yes.
And go on, sorry, go for it.
No. And how you make skills the core of your employee value proposition. You hire for skills, you promote for skills, you develop for new skills, and you create in general the whole employee experience around what are the right skills to drive innovation, transformation in your organization and in the marketplace, and how that is linked with a bigger purpose, because that's the other why an engineer in Boeing is going to spend nights trying to find the right combination of biofuels. We made a promise that in 2030, there is going to be full commercial planes running on biofuels. Now, we need to find the right combination and to make it economically attractive to the airlines. So why an engineer or a set of engineers in Boeing are working on that? Because it's something more than your pay. It's something more than your benefits. You are creating new frontiers for humanity. So that piece of purpose is important to be at the core on how you position this experience for the employees. Mm-hmm. You are here to have a great career, but you are here to change the world as well.
And we're seeing a lot of people over the last 15 months reassess that in many organizations. Is this really what I want to be doing with my career? Is this aligned with my purpose and my why? People have had a lot of time to think.
Absolutely.
About that. And we're going to see a lot of people, a lot of companies, if they're not careful, losing a lot of talent if you can't tie that in with a sense of purpose and a why and what that means for each of your employees personally. One of the things that L&D has always been scrutinized about over the years is, ROI as well. We never really ever got a magic solution, but obviously, with our LMS, LXPs, there is some data we're putting from there and other, but I'd love to hear your experience around kind of measuring the impact and ROI of the work that you do.
So I think that you have to think about data and insights, at least in 3 different layers. The first layer of insights and data is about consumption. What is happening with your offerings? What is happening with the journeys of upskilling, the journeys of new leadership competencies? And that data is more of they open, they use, they rated, what is your NPS, what is your drop rate. You have to manage this like a business. And you have to understand that as much as you may have a monopoly internally in the company, the employees always can give you back the badge and go to someplace else where they have a better experience. So the first layer of data and insights are all about patterns of consumption and how you can iterate your experiences. The second layer of data and insights is related with your, what I will characterize, time to productivity, time to get the skill into practice, in welding a wing or assembling something or creating a new report or offering something for your client in a different package. So this time to business impact, time to productivity is a measure that comes not necessarily just from the learning data, but from the day-to-day of your ERP, from the day-to-day of your CRM, And this is the piece where L&D tends to be shy in terms of not reaching out and trying to keep the data in ourselves and try to scrutinize the data even further. And the answer is not there. The answer is in the other side of the equation, is how the CRM, how the ERP, how the other systems are combining. So you get this second layer of important information about your impact into the business. And it's not about ROI of the learning investment. It's about the business impact, the ROI into the bottom line of the company. Because I think that we have spent, as you said, too much time thinking about what is the ROI of learning. The ROI of learning is on the business impact that we are creating, measured by the business, not by the learning function. Okay? And the third layer of data and insights is related with the overall employee experience, the engagement that you are driving, and this additional drive to succeed that happens when nobody's watching. And it's about culture. It's about a little of intangibles, but you can measure through engagement and cultural measurement. So you have these three layers. And if you don't have clarity, you will spend all your time trying to scrutinize your own data, and you are not going to find the answers.
I love the point you made about the collaboration with other departments, because you are right. If you don't have that CRM data, for example, that connects to your sales team, right? So if you're talking about innovating and a customer offering and what the conversion was on that new product and linking that back to your learning, there's a very clear, but you are right. In my experience, speaking to your peers, that there is a very big disconnect as well. And many of the most successful CLOs I speak to talk about the collaboration that they have with other departments and the focus you should have on collaborating closely with every single function and tying that data back in as well. But not many people actually that I've spoken to actually do that.
Well, that's the challenge for the new CLO, how we reinvent our own profession.
Mm-hmm. So when you've just joined this new role, maybe you've already had those conversations. Would you recommend for your peers listening to then reach out directly to each of those function heads, set up a meeting, have a conversation, and figure out how we can do that? What would your advice be?
First, you need to create the rapport, relationship, and you need to create trust. And then you can talk about the data, the transfer of the data, and the data warehouse. You need to understand. When I said on these clear skills for the future, you need to understand digital platforms, APIs, and connectivity. That starts with, okay, what is a data lake that you can create, and how you can nurture that data lake with all of these different, and how you design that, and how you have the right people helping you that. So yes, you need to reach out to your colleagues, to your peers in the different organizations in order to have the right connectivity. It starts with trust, rapport, and understanding what is the outcome. It's not about getting the glory to the L&D or HR department. It's about getting the client satisfied with what we do. Many of these conversations in an organization, unfortunately, are trapped into, oh, why you want my data? This is my data. This is the way that I justify my day-to-day to the senior leadership, and say, no, it's not about you or my data. It's about how we are delivering the right experience for our clients. It's about the client. So when you change that conversation, then you help to untrap the situation.
Yeah. And that happens a lot, right? You need to focus. And I learned that the hard way early on in my career, having conversations with leaders and going in with my agenda and falling flat very quickly. I learned that very early on, as opposed to kind of communicating of this is what it means for them and their clients and the business. And they're like, oh, okay. And now they're going to be a lot more receptive and they're going to be allies. Absolutely. And they're going to help you push that as well internally. It's a very important lesson I learned. And I'm sure everyone listening has probably been there at some point in their career. It's a very good point that you made there. How well do you think L&D overall is doing in terms of focusing on the future?
This is a I can interpret this as a loaded question, or I can interpret this as an open general question.
Yeah, it's a general question. I mean, let's keep it as a general question.
No. I think that in general, the industry is evolving. If you see the amount of venture capital that is coming to EdTech, you can see the trend in the right way. It means that the market values what we are doing here. It also says that the market wants more innovation. And you have to also consider what is the context of the L&D functions. If there is a context that you have a small organization where L&D is basic training, you need to deliver those basic things. And you can do it in a much simpler way if you want. Then you have more complex organizations that really operate in a broader ecosystem. So L&D needs to be this driver of innovation. And then you have the hyper complex environments, global operations, complicated industries, regulated industries. And then L&D needs to understand all of this is not just about innovation. It's about getting the right certifications to get the contracts. It's about doing the right clearances to get the skills that are going to deliver for these regulated clients. So L&D needs to be flexible, and we are learning along the way, I will say. Now, we are lucky that the recent pandemic and the recent trends in the marketplace is driving skills to the center of the conversation. And when you have skills at the center of the conversation is where you say, okay, who knows about the skills? Oh, I am the CLO. Oh, yes, come here to the conversation. I think that this is also a good situation to be. And you need to be prepared to be in this conversation, because if not, your business colleagues will easily dismiss you if you are not ready for those conversations. So L&D needs to understand the business, understand the context, understand what technology can do for us, and literally copy paste some of the things that are happening in digital marketing, digital platforms, the sense of purpose for companies, the driving the human side of the engagement. So all these pieces coming together, and you need to orchestrate that.
You are right, though. A lot of this already exists from a customer experience perspective. A lot of those tools, technologies, they're already there. We're already doing it for our customers. We just need to now shift that internally as well. A lot of people are trying to reinvent it. We don't need to. We've already done a lot of research and work and spent billions of dollars creating these, based on science as well. One thing I wanted to ask, though, a big challenge for our community and the learning community that we hear is just sort of balance between the day-to-day and then navigating the landscape where there's just every day there's a new technology or provider that appears claiming to solve all your problems, right? It's a minefield of vendors out there doing incredible work, etc. How do you balance that? And when I'm sure you're approached by vendors every day, I'm sure. What kind of questions do you ask? How do you assess them? Do you dedicate a particular time during the month to kind of assess what's out there? Because it's so much, it's so fast, if that makes sense. So much happening.
First, you need to get rid of the fear of missing out. Okay? If you are driven by the fear of missing out, you are going to be in a marathon that will never finish and you will never be satisfied. The second thing is you need to embrace the principle of how we work. We need to work on an iterative way. We need to prepare to try, to fail fast, and to move on. And I think that's the way that we can approach this set of opportunities that you can see there and have the right setup. You have to think ecosystem. You have to think plug and play. And you have to think iteration and beta versions, pilots. I think that's the way that you can test. And there is no perfect answer. There are very nice tools that work in a context and that not work in a different industry. So be clear about the context of your industry. And that's probably a part of how you need to have a little of a North Star on your exploration of new opportunities. What is the context of my industry? What is the context of the marketplace and the clients that I serve? And if you don't have to apply the tools that they are using in a different industry that may not be relevant for you or for the configuration of your workforce. And there is no magic formula. It requires a permanent attitude of iteration, I have to say. And yes, sometimes it can be a little exhausting, but at the same time, you need to start learning how to read the messaging. And if the messaging comes too much with a glittering message of we do, you will need to ask yourself again, because there is no silver bullet. I can tell you that up front and for sure. So if somebody is trying to say, look, this app will solve all your problems in a second, maybe that's not the person that you need to spend time with.
Before I let you go, I just want to jump into our quick fire round, which I do with every guest. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you have no longer than 30 seconds for each answer. Are you ready? You ready?
Yes.
What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a CLO? So your biggest challenge?
Thinking that learning was boring and it was about training events. So I have the old version. I got the new one and I love it.
Love it. Love it. Glad to hear it. What's the best piece of business advice you've received?
Understand what is the business model and how the clients get their money in your pocket. And then you can do everything else.
Work backwards from there.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some books that you'd recommend to our audience and why? Doesn't have to be learning related either. Any books that you know?
I think that the best books usually come from different spaces. There are a lot of business books, but I will say I read a lot of biographies. I learn around people that with their characters change things in our world. Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away last year. I read 3 or 4 different biographies of this lady that really reestablished a different conversation about discrimination and about how the law can change society.
Amazing. Definitely broadens your mind and perspective as well. How would your family describe what you do for a living?
Oh, now it has changed. My kids are amazing. My daddy builds planes. And it spends a lot of time in video conference, but now it's much easier to explain.
Yeah. I love it. That's an easy, yeah.
It's all about the Starliner and the rocket.
That's a very easy one as well. What's one thing about the business? Obviously, you've only just joined, but what's the one thing that you're most excited about moving forward with your journey at Boeing?
We are changing the world. The way that we move around, the way that we shoot for the stars. We are changing the world here.
Amazing.
With deep engineering innovation.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience of the show. I've learned so much as well, so I'm sure everyone else has listening, so I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations on the role. I can already see the energy, the passion, how excited you are with the new role. I'm super jealous of the Apache. I'm going to have to find one somewhere as well, I'll be honest, as well. Very last thing, if there's one, we've covered so much in this podcast, but if there's one parting piece of advice, what would that be? And then where can people connect with you? If they want to reach out to you and say hello, where's the best place?
Piece of advice in general is find your own voice. Sometimes it's difficult, it's inside yourself, but you have to find your own voice in order to advance your career, in order to feel comfortable with yourself, in order to understand what you want to be, what you want to do. And how people can connect. LinkedIn is the best platform. I have a Twitter account, Digital Miranda G as well. So I try to be very responsive in the social media platform.
Amazing. Well, look, thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm really excited to catch up in the near future to see how things are going as well. But keep up the amazing work and I'll see you again soon, okay?
Absolutely. Cheers.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye now.